Hi, I'm Dana, and for 15 years I gave my heart, soul, and youth to a man named Marcus. We weren't a fairy tale couple, but we had history, and I believed that counted for something. I met him when he had nothing but ambition and a charming smile. He promised me the world, and I believed him. We got married young, struggled through late rent, cheap dinners, and dreams bigger than our paychecks. I stood beside him as his quiet strength while he hustled, stumbled, and built his business from the ground up. I wasn't just his Wi-Fi, was his foundation, his constant. It's the one who never walked away. Kay was the one who paid the bills when he couldn't. I was the one who cooked dinner after 12-hour shifts and still managed to smile. While he was out building his empire, I was at home raising our daughter, keeping our home from falling apart and sacrificing my own dreams to keep his alive. People saw a power couple. They didn't see the sleepless nights, the therapy sessions, or the times I had to wipe his tears and hide mine. I believed in love. I believed in him. I thought love was about building something real. In the early years, everything we had, we earned together. I watched him grow from an insecure man into someone powerful, someone people admired. But with every milestone he achieved, I saw the shift. He became colder, distracted, distant. The warmth in his eyes began to disappear. He stopped asking me how my day was. He'd scroll through his phone during dinner, spend weekends working, and barely notice our daughter's school events. I blamed stress. I blamed life. I never once blamed him. That was my mistake, assuming the man I loved would never make me question his loyalty. I stopped recognizing the man in my bed. He became a shadow of the person I married, emotionally unavailable, dismissive, impatient. I was always walking on eggshells. I told myself it was just a phase. Every marriage hits a rough patch, right? I waited, hoping he'd return to me, to us, to what we built. Still did his laundry, still left notes in his briefcase, still celebrated every milestone as if I was proud, because I was. Even when he stopped kissing me goodnight, even when he stopped saying I love you, I stayed, 'cause that's what wives do. Then there were the late nights, the sudden trips, the whispers on his phone when he thought I wasn't listening. I saw the signs, but denial is a powerful drug. If you want to believe the person you sacrificed for would never destroy you, that they value the bond you both bled for. But deep down, I knew the man I built my life with was already halfway out the door, chasing a version of himself that didn't include me. Still, I held on, convincing myself that love means patience, loyalty, endurance. I was wrong. So heartbreakingly wrong looking. Back now, I see how invisible I became in my own marriage. How I romanticized pain, thinking it was love. I was never weak, but I was buried. Beneath his ambition, beneath his pride, beneath the fantasy of forever. I kept believing he'd see me again, remember who I was to him, how I carried him through the hardest years of his life. But I underestimated how easily a man forgets the woman who built his kingdom. And as much as it hurts to admit it, the man I once loved no longer existed. He was long gone. The betrayal didn't arrive with screaming or slammed doors. It came in silence. In the form of a white envelope on the kitchen counter with my name written in his handwriting. I stared at it for minutes before touching it. My hands trembled, heart pounding, already knowing what it was before I opened it. Divorce papers. After 15 years, he didn't even have the decency to look me in the eye. No conversation, no explanation. Just ink on paper that erased everything we built. I read every word twice, my tears blurring the lines. Marcus had chosen erasure over honesty. And I had been erased like I was nothing. I confronted him that night, standing in our kitchen, the same kitchen where we once danced barefoot on anniversaries. He didn't apologize. He didn't explain. Just said, "It's not working anymore." His face was cold, detached, like he was giving a business presentation, not ending a marriage. I asked him if there was someone else. He didn't deny it. He just shrugged. That shrug was the knife. Her name was Lily, his marketing assistant. Half my age, perfect makeup, no stretch marks, no memories, no history. I had carried his burdens for years. She carried his fantasies. He had the nerve to say, "You'll be fine. You're strong." As if I was some side character in a story he had outgrown. I wasn't fine. I was gutted. Everything I sacrificed was being handed over to a woman who hadn't earned it. It's the house, the lifestyle, the man I molded into success now being shared with someone who only knew his highlight reel. I saw it all unfold fast. Photos of them online, laughing like they hadn't just shattered a life. He moved on like I never mattered. And that's when something inside me snapped. He thought he could rewrite our history and make me disappear. But he forgot something I knew him better than anyone. His habits, his weaknesses, his secrets. I wasn't going to beg or chase. I wasn't going to break down and be his strong woman one last time. I was done being dignified. Done being quiet. I gave him 15 years, and in return, he handed me betrayal. So I decided to give him something back, something permanent. Not rage, not violence. Something colder, smarter. He destroyed my world. I was going to dismantle his piece by calculated piece. I started with what he valued most, his image. Marcus thrived on being the polished entrepreneur adored in his industry. But I knew where the cracks were. I knew about the shady partnerships, the unethical shortcuts he took early in his company's rise. I had the receipts, the files, the emails. I documented everything like it was war, 'cause it was. Every compliment he gave her, every smirk. He wore walking a why stored it like fuel. The woman he betrayed was gone. In her place stood someone he never anticipated. A woman with nothing to lose and everything to avenge. People say time heals. That's a lie. Time only sharpens the truth. And my truth was this: Marcus thought walking away made him free. But freedom has a price. He thought the divorce was the end. But it was only the beginning of a different story. My story. One where I wasn't the loyal wife in the background anymore. One where I wasn't waiting for someone to choose me. No, I was choosing myself, and he was going to learn that not every woman breaks. Some women rebuild themselves in silence and then return with fire. I knew revenge wasn't about screaming or scandal. It was about precision, about watching someone unravel from the inside. So I smiled at Marcus during our last meeting. I agreed to the divorce.com, polite, like I'd accepted defeat. But behind my eyes, I was calculating. I didn't want the house. I wanted the silence it gave me to plan. I didn't want alimony. I wanted control. I played weak, because that's what he expected. He saw me as the broken ex-wife. But every step I took after that was a move on a chessboard he didn't even realize he was standing on. He had no idea what was coming. Lily worked at his office. Perfect. That gave me my first opening. I created a fake identity, dramatic, just subtle enough to get inside their world. I started sending anonymous tips to the HR department. Whispered. Rumors, photos, emails. Enough to stir suspicion, enough to get people talking. Nothing that could be traced back. Marcus thrived in reputation. His board hated gossip. And Lily, being the other woman, was already walking a tightrope. My goal wasn't to destroy them overnight. I wanted them to collapse under the weight of their own secrets. One slow fracture at a time. Next, I planted seeds in their social circles. Our old friends, mutual contacts, I reconnected. Casual lunches, warm smiles, a few well-placed comments. It must have been hard for Marcus, ending it so suddenly, especially with the financial pressure. Or I wonder if Lily knows about the lawsuits from his early investors. I didn't have to lie. I just nudged. People love stories, especially ugly ones. Soon whispers turned into phone calls. Invitations to events stopped for them. The support they expected from others began to wither. And Marcus, the man who thought he owned every room, started to notice the coldness. Then came the financials. I still had access to a few key documents he forgot to change. I took screenshots, made copies, organized every irregularity, every questionable transfer he made during our marriage. Then I hired a forensic accountant. Quietly, I didn't go. To court, I leaked things to the right people. His partners, his investors, even a journalist or two. It started a chain reaction. Lawsuits, audits, frozen accounts. He didn't know where the hit came from because I was never near the blast. I watched from a distance while he spun in panic, trying to hold together a crumbling empire. Lily, once the shining prize, began to dim under pressure. She wasn't built for scandal. She wasn't built for chaos. She definitely wasn't built for a man unraveling before her eyes. I sent her a single email from an anonymous address. Enjoy the mess. You earned it. That was all. She quit the firm a week later, packed her things, and left the apartment they shared. No goodbye post, no tears. Just silence. She thought she was the upgrade. But Marcus was never the prize. He was the illusion. She finally saw him the way I now did. Small, selfish, and scared. By the time Marcus realized what was happening, it was too late. The setup was complete. His business was under review, his name was tainted, and his shiny new love had vanished. All while I stood on the sidelines, untouched. He tried calling. Once I didn't answer, not out of pride, but because he no longer existed to me. I gave him 15 years, and he ended it with papers. So I ended it with silence. But the silence carried something louder than rage consequences. Real, lasting ones. This was never just about revenge. It was about making him live in the wreckage he created. Marcus always thought I'd go quietly, that I'd cry for months, scroll through photos, beg him to reconsider. He never imagined I could be silent and deadly. The day his accounts were frozen, he stood outside the courthouse yelling at his attorney. I watched from across the street, sunglasses hiding the satisfaction. In my eyes, he was losing control, and nothing scared him more. His firm released a statement denying any misconduct, but the damage had already been done. Clients backed out. Investors vanished. His pride, his identity, was tied to his success. And now that success was on fire, and I was holding the match. I wasn't done. There was one last blow. Marcus had hidden assets during the divorce he thought I didn't know. But I knew about the offshore account in Dubai, the rental property in his brother's name. Okay, I gathered every piece of evidence and sent it to the IRS anonymously. Within weeks, he was under federal scrutiny. Auditors showed up at his door. He called me desperate, begging to talk. I let it ring. That silence, that was my justice. Not courtroom drama, just real-world consequences. I didn't need to fight him in front of a judge. I buried him with truth. Then I sent him a package. Inside was the first photo we ever took. Paris, 2008. He looked happy. I looked young. I wrote on the back, "This is the man I loved. He died the day you filed for divorce." That's all. No threats. No anger. Just a mirror forcing him to face the man he'd become. I heard from a friend he sat with that picture for hours. Kelly never came back. His business never recovered. And I finally slept. For the first time in years, I felt peace. Because justice doesn't need noise. Just strategy and patience. Some would call it cruel. Maybe it was. But what Marcus did wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. He erased 15 years like they were disposable. He replaced love with convenience. That's what fueled me. Not bitterness, precision. I wasn't the woman who screamed in public or keyed his car. I became the storm he never saw coming. Every loss he suffered was rooted in a choice he made. That's the beauty of revengeance, not always about punishment. It's about reflection. I made him watch himself fall. And I did it without ever touching him. That's what made it perfect. He tried dating again. I saw him on an app. His profile said, "Looking for honesty." The irony made me laugh. He was chasing something he destroyed in me, and now no one trusted him. His name was poisoned. His charm, once magnetic, was now suspicious. I even heard from one of his old business partners. He called to apologize, said he didn't realize how deep Marcus's lies went. Accepted the apology gracefully because I wasn't angry anymore. I was powerful. I didn't just survive the betrayal, I used it. I built an empire of control on the ashes of his ego, and now I'm free. Not in the cliche way people claim after heartbreak, but truly free. I rebuilt my life without him. Stronger, smarter, and far more dangerous. I don't need revenge anymore. I already lived it. Every time Marcus wakes up wondering how it all went wrong, my silence answers him. Every time he sees a door close, every opportunity denied, he knows why. He doesn't say my name out loud, but I live in his downfall. That's the real revenge, not destruction, but legacy. He filed for divorce. He ended the story. I just rewrote the ending. The silence that followed was unfamiliar. Not the suffocating silence of a failing marriage, but the kind that hums with clarity. I no longer woke up next to a man whose absence hurt more than his presence. My home felt wider, warmer, like it finally belonged to me. I took back everything he made me feel small for: loving lavender candles, old records, books about power and healing. The mirror didn't show a broken woman anymore. It showed someone reborn through fire. People said I seemed colder, stronger. They were right. You don't survive that kind of betrayal without shedding your old skin. I was no longer his wife. I was my own force. Word spread. Friends who had disappeared during the divorce quietly returned, full of awkward sympathy and shallow apologies. I didn't need them anymore. I wasn't interested in pity or validation. I had walked through a storm alone and come out sharper. Even my parents, once skeptical of my silence, began to understand. My mother watched me one afternoon, bothered, working on my laptop, and whispered, "You've changed." I just smiled. I had. Pain will do that. It doesn't just scar you. It sculpts you. Every tear, every sleepless night became part of the architecture of the woman I'd become. Marcus eventually stopped trying to contact me. His final message was a desperate voicemail on my birthday. "I never meant to hurt you." T. Had intent doesn't erase impact. I didn't delete it. I saved it, not out of sentiment, but as a reminder. A man can burn down a decade of love in minutes and still call it an accident. That was his weakness. He never understood the cost of his actions. He thought divorce was a clean break, a paperwork formality. He didn't realize it was a trigger that would dismantle everything he'd built with my help. My revenge wasn't revenge, it was consequence. There was no dramatic closure, no final confrontation in the rain. Life just moved on, quietly, powerfully. I bought a new place across town, started a business, nothing fancy, just something that was mine. Every inch of it was filled with intention, with independence. I traveled alone, unapologetically, took photos in places I once dreamed of visiting with him. And every time I posted a smiling picture, I knew he saw it. That was enough. No captions, no bitterness, just proof that I hadn't just survived, had evolved. He filed for divorce thinking he was cutting me off. Instead, he set me free. There's a strange kind of peace that comes with watching someone lose what they once took for granted. Marcus still walks through the city, but people don't greet him the same. Clients don't answer his calls. Call it. His name no longer opens doors. He's just another man with a past that whispers when he enters a room. And me, I no longer whisper. I speak, I lead, I live. People see me differently now, not as someone who has left, but as someone who rose. I didn't just endure betrayal. I weaponized it. That's what happens when you break a woman who knows her worth. So here I am, 15 years erased by one selfish decision. But I didn't collapse, I recalibrated. I don't hate Marcus anymore. I don't need to. His life is already the punishment. Mine is the reward. And maybe someday he'll walk by someone who reminds him of me, and he'll pause. Just for a second. And he'll feel it, the emptiness. The knowing that the woman he once broke didn't just move on. She became unforgettable. That's the story he'll live with. Not a scandal. Not a lawsuit. Just the weight of regret following him like a shadow. That was my revenge, and I never looked back.